Gibson broke the internet again today. I just got done watching a video of a track hoe. If you don't know what a track hoe is a large piece of heavy machinery, also known as a link belt excavator, run over what appeared to be hundreds of leftover inventory of the Gibson Firebird X, circa 2011 or 12. I can't, I think it was the year that it came out. Brief background on the Gibson Firebird X. I don't know how many were made, but they made quite a few of them back in 2011, 2012. As I said, they had the robot tuners. They had, it was kind of a weird, different take on the Firebird shape itself, and also had onboard effects, and came with a little Bluetooth effects pedal, and it had its own charger and its own case for the charger and the Bluetooth foot controller thing. And unfortunately it was not very well received by the guitar community. They were insanely expensive, especially for that time. They sold brand new for $39.99. The store that I was at the time, we received 2 of each color, one to hang on the wall and one to sell brand new in the box, of both a red one and a blue one. And we never sold any of them, and a year and a half later, we ended up boxing them all back up and sending them all right back to Gibson. I've since seen them at clearance prices all over the internet for years since then, of people just trying to get rid of these things for $1,500 or so, far below what the actual dealer cost on those were originally. Anyway, no long story short, they just were not very well received. And yes, I have made fun of that guitar on my channel here in the past. So, that said, as I mentioned, I just got done watching this video, and boy, is the internet all abuzz about it. Now, for those of you that have watched this channel for a long time, this channel has always supported a local nonprofit organization here in my area called Share the Music. And what Share the Music does is accept donations of broken and unwanted instruments, repairs and refurbishes them as necessary, and then turns around and donates them to children and families and music programs in need that would not otherwise be able to afford an instrument on their own. So, for those of you that may be fairly new to my channel, all of my older videos there is, I used to do a little 30-second or so promo at the end talking about Share the Music, and because of the way that YouTube views certain statistics now, I had to cut that out. However, the mention of Share the Music is still mentioned in the intro of every one of my videos, so if any of you have ever been curious as to what that is in reference to, that's what it is. You can also find links to Share the Music and how to get in contact with them should you have an instrument that you would like to donate for such a cause down in the description. And I'm also very proud to say that this channel has attracted over 100 donations of various different instruments that have all been repurposed and redonated to lots of different places in need. So, that said, that seems to be what lots and lots and lots of people on the internet are all abuzz about. What appears to be hundreds of guitars, I don't know how many there are, were being ran over and destroyed by a track hoe rather than being donated. So, I am not going to say that what they did was right or wrong. And the way that I understand it was that they had, from a branding standpoint, they made a decision to destroy them and get them out of circulation altogether because quality-wise, they just were not up to the current leadership regime's standards, and as they were a design from the previous leadership of Gibson. So, because Gibson deemed all of these guitars to be not up to the current standards from a QC standpoint, a decision was made to have them destroyed and get them out of circulation. And presumably by doing so, they will, of course, reap the rewards of a tax write-off of some kind, I'm assuming. Many people, as I have mentioned, are all up in arms saying that they should have been donated to various different causes that I mentioned before, such as what Share the Music tends to provide to its recipients. I don't know what the right or wrong answer is, because from a branding standpoint, if these guitars were deemed not up to snuff, I have heard opinions from various other guitar builders, smaller builders, that do seem to understand that they just do not want something that they feel is poor quality out there with their name on it, which I suppose is understandable. Gibson are a large corporation. They are a for-profit corporation. They are not a not-for-profit. They are in the business to make money, and part of the way that they do that is by branding. So, from a personal standpoint, yeah, I would have liked to have seen Gibson donate them or sell them to a charity auction or something like that. Somebody that could have really benefited from it. And, because my understanding is, and again, I'm not an expert at this kind of thing, but my understanding is they still would have gotten a pretty hefty tax write-off for that as well. So, but that's me personally. I'm not their CFO. I don't make those kinds of decisions. I'm not in the boardroom when those decisions are being made and those conversations are being had. So, I am not here to criticize Gibson on this matter at all. At this point, I find it very, very amusing how polarizing of a topic and how polarizing of a company Gibson has become every single time they do the littlest thing that hits the news. Is this the first time they've ever done something like this? I don't have any idea. My understanding was the service was performed by a scrapyard in Tennessee, and there was a recording of the scrapyard manager out there on the interweb somewhere. I watched a lot of videos of this, by the way. There's a recording out there of a scrapyard manager saying, yeah, this is for Gibson. They felt that these guitars were not up to their current standards of quality, and they needed them destroyed. This video was taken as documentation, legal documentation, to prove that they were in fact destroyed. Okay, I can get on board with that. If that's what we need to do. I also kind of feel sorry for Gibson, because here lately they can't seem to do anything without pissing off a lot of people. Okay, the first segment that you just viewed, that actually was originally going to be the end of this video. However, as I film this segment, it is now about 48 hours later, and I've had some time to think a little bit more on this. And it kind of occurred to me that in the first video, I was just kind of getting a kick out of things, and I didn't really clarify my stance real well. So, that's what I'm going to do now, since I have had another couple days to marinate on this. I don't blame Gibson at all. I think they did what was best for the organization. And in a perfect world, yeah, we all would have liked for them to have, repaired them well enough to be played and donated to, children in need, or music programs, all those places that they could certainly use donations of, of any number of different types of musical instruments, particularly guitars. But if they're not up to the quality control standards of the current management regime, they're not up to the standards. And in the long run, if they let those guitars get out into circulation, for example, they donate, just for the sake of example, they donate those guitars, and little Timmy gets his first guitar, and all of a sudden, little Timmy turns out to be the next Zakk Wylde, and all of a sudden that guitar winds up on the used market. There is a substandard guitar that is now in circulation on the used market. And with hundreds of these guitars, you can't assume that that's only going to be one of them. You have to assume, especially the value of these things, somebody's going to get greedy, somebody's going to get desperate, and a lot of these things are going to wind up going back out into circulation where Gibson does not want them. Why? Because their name is on it. And if their name is on it, in the long run, that is only going to hurt their branding. Even despite the era they were made, I realize they were made under, back in the Henry J era, in 2011-ish, I think it was. Despite that, they're still going to be out there, and they're still going to, they're still going to hurt the brand. At least I assume that's their feeling. And if it hurts their brand, that is going to hurt their bottom line in the long run. Not to mention the upfront cost, just to be able to, to pay how many techs, for how many hours of work to get that many substandard guitars to playable expectations, even just to be donated. That's a lot of labor. That's a lot of labor. That's a lot. That's probably a fair amount of parts, especially if they, they claim that the hardware and electronics were not safe. That's a lot of parts I got to replace, and a lot of people they got to pay to replace them. So yeah, in a perfect world, I think we all would have liked to have seen them go to people in need. But, from a business standpoint, it's just not realistic and it's just not cost effective. And, and we can't sit here and say, well, Gibson's the largest guitar company on the planet. They can afford it. Well, no, they can't. Let's not forget they just went through a corporate level bankruptcy a year ago. And as a result, they were acquired by a large investment firm whose primary objective is to turn the company profitable again so they can flip it. So right now, it is all about the bottom line. And in the long run, and by long run, I'm projecting 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. That is what is going to be best for business, I think, in the long run. Besides, let's think about it. Let's look at some other companies. I'm sure that I am not the only one out there who has seen a video of Paul Reed Smith himself running a beautiful custom 24 through a bandsaw over because it has something like a little teeny tiny microscopic sized finish flaw on it that he doesn't like and feels that it is not up to PRS's standards. They don't want those guitars out in circulation. That's why they wind up in a bandsaw and then eventually wind up in a dumpster somewhere, so that they're not out there in circulation. Paul Reed Smith does not want his name on anything out there like that. Nobody's giving him a hard time about it. I've met Paul Reed Smith in person before, and I have heard people ask him in person the next time he's thinking about running a guitar through a bandsaw to mail it to them, and they swear on their mother's grave that they're never going to let loose of it and let it out into circulation. He ain't letting it happen. His reputation and his brand are too important to him, and that's just what he's known for. And we all accept that, okay? Why are we giving Gibson such a hard time? The other reason that I wanted to do an addendum to this video is because I have also heard some new information that I heard this information from Sean Pierce Johnson, and Sean's in the know. Sean knows what he's talking about. He mentioned that the video surfaced because somehow or another a disgruntled Gibson employee managed to get a hold of it, and who I guess was recently fired, and that's when it apparently got leaked out on the internet, here in the last couple of months, but it didn't blow up and go viral here until this past week, is my understanding. So apparently the video was released by a disgruntled former employee. Now the reason why the video was taken, as I mentioned previously, is because apparently Gibson had to have a video documentation that these guitars were actually destroyed for legal purposes. I'm assuming so that they are able to write them off accordingly. So should Gibson have should there have ever been a video of this thing? Apparently yes. Apparently it was a requirement. It was a requirement and a necessity. Now, whoever it was that allowed a disgruntled former employee to have access to it, when he got access to it, before or after he was released from the company, I don't know. But, whoever it was that did not have this video secured properly, that's on Gibson. That's on Gibson, and we wouldn't even be talking about it had somebody taken the proper steps to make sure that it was kept private, or at least privy only to the people that required access to it. So regarding that part of it, yeah, that's a faux pas on Gibson. But the rest of it, I don't see why Gibson should be getting the kind of heat over this thing that they are. Until somebody who was in that boardroom where these decisions were being made speaks up about this and says otherwise, from my perspective, it seems to me that they were doing the best effort. They were putting forth the best effort that they possibly could to do what was best for business in their organization. There's not a business in the world that is not trying to make those decisions every single day. So there you have it. In a nutshell, who's right or wrong? I don't know. It's not for me to say. However, I am very, very interested to hear what you all may have to say about it. So please leave me a comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts on this whole situation might be. I'll post a link to the video so that you can check it out. It's about a 3-minute or so video. I'll post a link to that down to the description so you can check it out. And, you know, like, dislike, subscribe, bell, click all those things, you know, under the screen here in this area, right around here, and support the channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.